The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from a dozen species filled the massive, circular hall, their voices overlapping in panic. The Ghyrek Dominion had wiped out another system, obliterating the Aramthi colonies in less than a day. Even the oldest, most powerful species of the galaxy had begun to fear extinction. "They will not stop," bellowed a representative of the Zalcor, his many eyes wide with terror. "Their fleets are endless, and our forces cannot hold them much longer." The High Chancellor, a towering Sithan, raised a hand to silence the growing panic. "We need new allies. The war has escalated beyond our projections." His glowing eyes swept across the chamber. "What of the soul species? The humans?" A murmur rippled through the room. Humanity, a young species from the far reaches of the galaxy, had recently made its mark by developing faster-than-light travel. Primitive in technology compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy, they had been largely ignored in the political and military machinations of the war. Until now. "Humans," scoffed a Xelon delegate, his mandibles clicking dismissively. "They're barely out of their atmosphere. What could they possibly offer in a war like this?" The council laughed, but the Chancellor was not swayed. "Their rapid development is no accident. They've survived their world's harsh environment and thrived. They may be more dangerous than we assume." Meanwhile, aboard the human exploration vessel Odyssey, Captain Elise Morgan stared in disbelief at the holographic display. Her crew had detected a massive energy signature nearby, a battle. Sensors lit up with alien signatures. They had suspected intelligent life for years, but nothing had prepared them for this. "Captain, what do we do?" Lieutenant Reyes asked, his voice tight with anxiety. Morgan's heart raced, but she steadied herself. "We observe. No engagement. We don't know what we're dealing with." The Odyssey hovered at the edge of the battlefield, hidden by the debris of a shattered moon. Through the viewport, they could see two alien fleets clashing, one significantly larger, the other fighting a desperate defense. It was clear who the aggressor was: enormous ships bristling with weapons, bombarding the smaller fleet mercilessly. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the smaller fleet's flagship, sending it spiraling toward the human ship. The crew gasped as it hurtled closer, weapons fire trailing it. "Captain, they're heading right for us," Reyes yelled. Morgan's mind raced. They had two choices: remain hidden and risk being caught in the crossfire, or intervene. "Target the attacking ships," Morgan ordered, her voice firm. "Fire everything we've got." The Odyssey surged forward, its weapon systems glowing as it unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy blasts at the Ghyrek attackers. The alien fleet hesitated, not expecting the human ship to enter the fray. Taking advantage of the confusion, the beleaguered defenders regrouped and counterattacked. Within minutes, the Ghyrek forces were retreating, unsure of what had just hit them. Captain Morgan stared at the wreckage in disbelief. Humanity had just made its entrance into the galactic war, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the stars shimmered outside the viewport, Morgan knew one thing: they had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The news of the Odyssey's intervention spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Alien factions that had long dismissed humanity as insignificant were now forced to reconsider. In the halls of power on Earth, the revelation of alien life, and humanity's involvement in a galactic war, plunged the planet into political chaos. In the United Nations secretive war room, military leaders and world governments convened. President Andrew Collins stood at the head of the table, his face grave as he addressed the gathered leaders. "We can no longer deny it," he began, voice steady. "We're not alone in the universe. And now, we're in the middle of a war that we barely understand." General Marcus Reed, head of Earth Space Command, chimed in, his voice sharp. "The Ghyrek Dominion is unlike anything we've ever faced. They're highly advanced, ruthless, and relentless. But they've underestimated us." Captain Morgan's encounter proved that we're capable of standing toe-to-toe with them. Around the room, holographic displays showed the first scans of Ghyrek ships, tactical analyses flashing by. Earth had known for years that they weren't the only intelligent species out there, but to actually face them in combat was another matter entirely. "We're not ready for this," a European ambassador said, his voice shaking. "We're barely a united planet. How can we fight an interstellar war?" President Collins nodded slowly. "We don't have a choice. The Ghyrek Dominion will come for us eventually. If we don't take the fight to them, Earth will become another one of their conquests." The room fell into a tense silence. It wasn't just a matter of survival, it was a matter of whether humanity could rise to the challenge of war on a galactic scale. The question wasn't if they should fight, but... Suddenly, the room's communication system crackled to life. "Incoming transmission from an alien envoy," an officer reported. "They claim to represent a coalition of free species fighting against the Ghyrek Dominion." President Collins exchanged a glance with General Reed before nodding. "Put it through." The hologram flickered, and a tall, ethereal figure materialized in the center of the room. Its features were vaguely humanoid, but elongated and refined, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. This was one of the Scythan, a species long considered to be one of the galaxy's elder races. "I am Ambassador Ghyrek of the Galactic Coalition," the figure said, voice calm but laced with urgency. "We seek your aid in the war against the Ghyrek. Your intervention in the recent battle has proven your strength. We ask that humanity join us, for the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance." The room erupted in whispers. Earth, still reeling from the revelation of alien life, was now being asked to enter a full-scale galactic war as an ally. President Collins raised his hand, silencing the murmurs. His eyes locked onto the holographic figure. "If we join you, it will be on our terms. Humanity will not be a pawn in anyone's war." Ambassador Ghyrek's gaze softened. "Of course. But know this, humans, if the Ghyrek Dominion is not stopped, your world will burn as others have." The tension in the room was palpable. The decision would change the course of human history. But it was clear to everyone in that room, humanity had been awakened, and their entrance into the war would not be subtle. They were ready to fight. President Collins took a deep breath and gave the order that would echo across the galaxy. "Prepare the fleet." The galaxy's front lines trembled as humanity unleashed its first wave of military strikes. Aboard the UNSC Resolute, Admiral James Hale surveyed the holographic battlefield, where human and allied alien forces advanced on a Ghyrek stronghold. This wasn't Earth's war to start, but it was now their war to win. "Engage the cloaking fields," Hale ordered. Human stealth technology, developed in secret, gave them an edge the galaxy hadn't seen before. Ghyrek ships were powerful, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons, but they were predictable. Humanity had built its strength on adaptability, and that's exactly what they would bring to the battlefield. As the human fleet closed in, the enemy was unaware of their presence until it was too late. Suddenly, Ghyrek cruisers exploded as human fighters, drones, and torpedoes struck with precision. The aliens, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. But human tactics were anything but conventional. Where the Ghyrek expected a direct assault, they were hit with guerrilla-like hit-and-run tactics. On the ground, human marines engaged Ghyrek forces in brutal close-quarters combat. Earth's soldiers, trained on a world of extremes, were unmatched in their resilience and adaptability. Their exosuits allowed them to move faster, hit harder, and endure longer than their alien counterparts. The Ghyrek, used to domination by sheer force, were unprepared for the ferocity of human warfare. In the skies above the battlefield, Captain Elise Morgan led her squadron of fighters in daring maneuvers that would have been suicidal by the galaxy's standards. But humanity didn't follow the galaxy's rules. Morgan's squadron weaved between enemy ships, exploiting weaknesses in their formation, overwhelming the Ghyrek from angles they hadn't anticipated. The combined human and coalition forces pressed the advantage, routing the enemy fleet and breaking their ground defenses. As the dust settled, victory was clear. Admiral Hale watched the retreating Ghyrek forces, his face grim. "They'll be back, and they'll hit harder." Captain Morgan's voice crackled over the comms, filled with steely resolve. "Let them come. We're ready." The galaxy was beginning to understand what they had unleashed. Humanity wasn't just another species in this war, they were a force of nature. Their innovations, their ruthlessness, and their refusal to back down were shifting the balance of power. For the first time in centuries, the Ghyrek Dominion was on the defensive. And with each battle, humanity's legend grew. The galaxy was no longer fighting an ancient war of attrition. It was fighting something far more dangerous. The humans had arrived, and the war was changing. The stars above the Ghyrek capital world burned with the fire of battle. Humanity's fleet, leading a coalition of liberated species, had pushed deep into enemy territory. The once unstoppable Ghyrek Dominion, a juggernaut that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, was crumbling. Admiral James Hale stood on the bridge of the UNSC Resolute, watching as human warships prepared for the final assault. "All ships, ready weapons," Hale commanded. The air crackled with anticipation. This was it, the endgame. The Ghyrek had thrown everything they had into this last defense, but humanity and its allies had come too far to turn back. Below, on the surface of the Ghyrek capital, Captain Elise Morgan led an elite strike team into the heart of the enemy stronghold. The Ghyrek's final trump card, a doomsday weapon capable of devastating entire planets, had to be neutralized before it could be unleashed. Morgan's team moved with practiced efficiency, cutting down enemy soldiers as they stormed through the facility. "Move, move, move!" Morgan shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos. Explosions rocked the complex, but the humans pressed forward, their objective clear. Inside the Ghyrek war room, Supreme Warlord Rakthar watched in disbelief as his forces faltered. His once unbeatable armies were being dismantled, piece by piece, by these humans, creatures who had only recently emerged onto the galactic stage. He snarled, slamming a clawed fist onto the control panel. "How can this be? They're primitives." But the Ghyrek had underestimated humanity's resilience, their unpredictability. Rakthar's empire had relied on fear and brute strength, but humans fought with something more, an unyielding will to survive and innovate. They adapted, they learned, and they never stopped fighting. In space, the final clash erupted. Human ships, reinforced with alien technology, tore through the Ghyrek armada. Human tactics, deceptive, flexible, and relentless, were too much for the rigid Ghyrek command structures to handle. The Dominion's mighty capital ships fell one by one, consumed by fire. Back on the surface, Captain Morgan's team reached the doomsday weapons core. With precise coordination, they planted charges and set the countdown. As they sprinted for the exit, the facility erupted in flames behind them, the weapon destroyed. Above, Admiral Hale watched as the last of the Ghyrek fleet crumbled. The war was over. Humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed. But as the galaxy celebrated the end of the Ghyrek Dominion, a shadow of uncertainty lingered. Humanity's rise had been meteoric, and their power undeniable. The galaxy trembled, not from fear of the Ghyrek anymore, but from the realization that humanity, fierce, unpredictable, and unstoppable, now held the reins of power. And no one knew what they would do next.